And over to you, Doug.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael, and welcome everyone to the second webinar in a four-part series hosted by Community Living Ontario and the Provincial Executive Directors Group. My name is Doug Carton, and I'm going to be moderating this session today, introducing our speaker. Today's session is on supporting people to have choice and control in community-based housing. I hope you're at the right place. It's not the real estate seminar. So before we just start, I'd like to provide a land acknowledgement this afternoon. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands where we each find ourselves today. While we're meeting on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of these lands where we make our homes and do our work. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and our responsibility to Indigenous peoples and their cultures from coast to coast to coast. So just please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can, both individually and collectively, move forward in support of reconciliation, justice, and respectful collaboration. So I'd like to take this time right now to introduce to you our speaker for our topic today, that having choice and control in community-based housing. Our presenter, our speaker today is John Policicchio, who's the Executive Director of Community Living Algoma. John's been the executive director there for 21 years, and he's worked in developmental services for over 30 years. John considers his career to be one of continuous change management and change facilitation. He's very proud of his agency's accomplishments, and they include such things as a 4-year accreditation status through the Council on Quality and Leadership, making a shift from traditional behavioral treatment and supports to more positive approaches in supporting people whose behavior is disturbing. The implementation of Children's Services Framework, which has increased the volume of support by almost 4 times since 2009. John also speaks about the transformation of more congregate and sheltered programs, workshops, day programs, to greater degrees of community employment and community engagement with people. And today, John's going to talk about what he also thinks is really important for his agency and for the people they serve, is this shift towards housing options within the community, where people choose where and with who they live, something that's very consistent with Article 19 on the Convention of the Rights of Disabled Persons, which Canada has ratified. I want to say, before I turn it over to John, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll have time after the presentation for a question and answer with John. This is the best way to put your questions forward to us, rather than sort of raising your hand or things like that, because we have almost 200 people on the call today. So with that introduction, I'm going to move this over to John Policicchio to lead this presentation and the discussion afterwards. John?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Doug. And thank you, Sean, for the opportunity today to present on this special topic of concern probably to most of you, or you wouldn't be here. As Doug said, this isn't about real estate today. It's about choice and control in people's lives. I want to thank all of you for taking the time this afternoon for joining the presentation, and hopefully you will find it informative and helpful as you either begin or are in the midst of or kind of completing your journey down a similar path. So I'm just going to quickly move into my slides, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, is that ready to go?
Not yet, John. No.
We'll have to do screen share, John. And your screen share button should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen.
Okay, let's try this again. There we go.
Okay, great. We can see that now, John.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael.
And if you can adjust your presentation to full screen, wonderful. Looks great.
All right. Thank you. So as Doug mentioned, the session today is entitled Supporting People to Have Choice and Control in Community-Based Housing. And I think the two key terms here are choice and control. And I hope you have the opportunity to see that as I present our journey and our story. So here you'll see just choice and control. And again, my lens is going to be on where you live and who you live with. Two key outcomes through the Council on Quality and Leadership. And as I get closer to the end of the presentation, you'll see some research information around the importance of people being able to choose where they live and who they live with. So here you'll see the power of choice, Nelson Mandela. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears, and take control of your life. I'm going to share two videos. One of them is 18 minutes in length, the other is 17. I firmly believe in the power of stories. We try and chronicle and journal with people's permission as much of these stories that can be used here for us locally, but also can be shared and used by others, because sometimes it's better that the story tells the picture and the journey as opposed to listening to me speak about it. But the first story I'm going to share is about Mary Ann, and it's entitled Mary Ann's Home. And the kinds of things you'll see in this story are home sweet home, family is always and forever, and do it because they said you couldn't. Mary Ann's story is very much about individualized and person-centered supports. A key thing that comes out of Mary Ann's story is that we need to listen, and then listen deeply to what it is that people are telling us they want in their lives. The story is also going to reference a bed versus a home. And then you'll see by the end of the video how this has significantly improved Mary Ann's personal health. And then the final piece you'll also hear is you never break a promise to people we support. Of special note, the term, you're going to hear the term client used in the video. It was used by a third-party contractor developer. His name is Mark. He did not intend any harm or disrespect towards people with disability. And at that point in time, we just couldn't get the video edited, but Mark was very apologetic for using the term and promises us he will never use that term again. So here comes the video.
Mary Ann is a beautiful lady with a great sense of humor and a great heart. She likes to look beautiful. She likes to be told that she is.
She's got a beaming personality. She's got this infectious smile and laughter. She's just a wonderful person to be around.
All she really wants is just to live like everyone else. CLE's main goal is to have people integrated into their community as much as possible, to be living to their full potential and having a quality of life. I've known Mary Ann for about 25 years. I worked in a group living, one of our group living homes, and she came there for day supports, and then on and off for the last 25 years. So when I first started managing the group living situation that Mary Ann was living in, she seemed very frail. She was often in the hospital, very somber unless certain staff might be working, and tried to keep her a little more upbeat. And where she lived, there was 5 other people that were supported. So the days were very busy with staff caring for 6 people in the home. Oftentimes, Marianne would get up and come to sit in the living room and maybe watch TV for the rest of the day, not having much else to do. Sometimes there was activities that she enjoyed, like church, for example. She loves to go to church, but she couldn't always get there because when you're sharing supports in a home with 5 other people, you know, everybody has to take turns. When I first went to manage that home, the staff were really adamant that when Marianne moved into that home, she was promised that it wasn't going to be a forever situation. It was only going to be temporary. And so I made it one of my main goals to work on making that happen for her. I met Marianne in 2011. The manager, Maureen, asked me to do a personal outcome measures interview. That interview is where we measure quality of life for a person we support. And then we also ask the staff 21 questions, and we look at quality of services and what we're doing to facilitate outcomes and goals for people. So I went in to do this outcome interview. Maureen knew that Marianne wasn't happy, so we were going to do some planning. That gave us a basis of where it was. So I started going to ask her some questions, and she was not happy with the organization. She's very clear on her yeses and her nos. She doesn't use words to communicate. So when I was asking her questions, the majority of the responses were that she wasn't happy and a lot of no's. So a lot of things weren't happening in her life at the time. She was telling me for 7 years through the outcome interviews that she wasn't happy. So when you look at when we're responding as staff and saying, well, we can't because it's so-and-so's turn, or we can't because we don't have enough staff, or we couldn't fill a shift, or we don't have it in the budget. She's telling us and we're not listening. So the respect's not happening. Is she being treated fairly? No, we're not following through on the things that she wanted to. So that's why outcomes weren't happening for her, because she's inside a system where she had to take turns waiting for what she wanted to do.
So Marianne, for many years, was supported in a family home environment, and due to some unfortunate circumstances, Marianne had to move from there. And at the time, the only place we had available was a bed in one of our group homes. So Marianne was moved in a group home, but she had made it very clear to us that that isn't where she wanted to live. And our promise to her was that we would be supporting her to find a place for her to live. And what she was articulating to us was that she wanted to live independently. She ended up being in this particular home for a period of 7 years. And every year she would remind us that that's not where she wanted to live. She was ready to go. Several of our managers had been exploring in the community housing opportunities for people. We ended up encountering a developer by the name of Mark, and he was building an accessible home in the west end of our community.
I contacted CLA approximately 3 years ago because I had finished building this home and I thought it would be excellent for one of their clients. This home was purpose-built under Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation standards for accessible housing. I thought Marianne was an excellent client for this purpose-built home, for someone who was in a wheelchair, so someone who needed the mobility options that this home has. So I was ecstatic that Marianne was going to be moving into this home. It's a 1,200 square foot home that's all on one level. So the real important thing is accessible. There are no stairs, no trip hazards, open concept kitchen, living, dining room. The hallways are 4 feet wide. The doorways are all 3 feet wide. And there's a large wheelchair accessible bathroom that has a wheel-in shower. We have another project that we would like to build an exact replica of this home again. And we will obviously give Community Living Algoma first option on providing a home for one of their clients. We love working with Community Living Algoma, and we would like to continue the partnership. So if there is a need for it, we will provide the product. They're very professional, they're very kind, and they're very caring. And it's an honor for me to work with them.
Yeah, whenever as an organization we help people experience the life they want to experience, and there certainly is a strong sense of pride, because it isn't easy work when you're supporting 1,000 people who may want all these different things. But I sense that, you know, the team that is surrounding Marianne and others that have been very progressive in their thinking, they have become very proud themselves. They're more confident with the work they're doing each and every day. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with Marianne's team, and they exhibit a different pride and a different sense of esteem and confidence because they've learned so much. And when you show up to work and you're supporting a person to do what they want to do, and you see how well they're doing, you just can't help but feel good about that. We know that when staff feel good about how they're supporting people, then people get to experience a better life themselves. And you know, we deeply thank people like Marianne because they're our teachers, they're our guides, they're our ambassadors, they're the ones that help us understand that they can have a life like everybody else and that their life doesn't need to be about programs and systems and group homes, and that they can live in their own places. Our role with Marianne as an organization is to make sure that Marianne's wishes and dreams are fulfilled. So we really want to give her the life that she wants to live, make sure that she's safe, that she is healthy, and that she gets to enjoy life the way she wants to enjoy it. If she wants to watch TV, she watches TV. If she wants to go out, she gets to go out. It's difficult to plan day to day because Marianne has the ability to make spontaneous decisions. So staff really have to be able to adjust their thinking and their time according to what Marianne wants that particular day. But it's all about community, it's all about friends, it's about relationships, it's about giving her the life she wants to live.
I've worked for the agency for 26 years. I've known Marianne for 26 years, and I love it. She lived with 5 other people. So they all had their televisions on a different channel. Like some people had sound machines, some people were loud. There was a keyboard that played almost from morning to night, which was right across the hall from her. Staff coming in and out to check other people's wheelchairs, other people's family members coming in. Because staff had 5 other people to take care of, some people like just get lost. You became like a machine, like you take care of one person and then you're on to the next person, on to the next person. Personal care happened, the person got up, the person got dressed, but then you're on to the next person. No matter how hard you try as a staff to make sure you had enough time, it didn't happen. Then when this opportunity came up, like as soon as we walked through the door and showed her around, she was staying. She loved it.
Maureen organized some educational sessions for staff because we were going to be adamant that Marianne was going to be able to pick who worked with her. She went to the information sessions so that people could ask questions, and that was a first for us. So then she was able to talk about the support that Marianne would need, and we also looked at if you're going to come and work with Marianne, these are the things that are very important to her. Like she wants to go to swimming and she wants to go to church and be connected to her family, and so staff had to be committed to that. She was also a part of designing her own room and picking out her furniture, and she loves to shop, and so she went and picked out all her bedding and all the colors, and so she was very excited about that, and the staff and her were going to the mall to pick out the things that she wanted, and I think the excitement was starting to build for her and realizing that it was going to happen. So Marianne moved into her new home in August of 2018.
When we first started this transition, I remember meeting with Maureen, the manager, and we were at great discussions about, it's all about me, Marianne. So it's my home, it's my choice, it's my television, it's my space, it's my friends. And I think that has been reinforced. And what we've seen is really an empowered woman. Marianne knowing that it's all about her. And I think that really contributes to self-confidence, self-worth, feeling valued, higher self-esteem. And you can just see the pride in Marianne. I think she's perched more firmly in her chair, and we've seen significant improvements in her health. We're strong believers that as you support people the way they want to be supported, that it has a direct connection to their health and well-being, and we're certainly seeing that with Marianne.
Marianne, since moving into community-based housing, has told us that she wants to go out every day. So we do our best to make that happen. She likes to go out and go to church. She likes to go to the mall. She loves shopping. She's a lot more independent now. And she's choosing the life that she's living, even to the point of when I go in as a manager, if you're managing group living, you go into the home and out of the home as you please, basically. But for Marianne, one day I asked her, she was going out, and I asked her if I could stay and finish up my work there when she went out. And she told me no. I felt a little hurt by that personally, but I was so thrilled that she felt empowered enough to tell me no. And it only makes sense. Who wants anybody in their home once they've gone out? So I now respect that for everybody that I support, and I'm there if they're home and they want me to come in, and if not, then I'm not there. I've never seen her happier than she is right now. She is smiling more than I've ever seen Marianne smile, and every time I go to her house, she's smiling. She seems so much happier. Her health has improved immensely. So since she's been living in her own home, she hasn't been in the hospital. She hasn't had any bouts of illnesses that have really required a doctor's attention. She's just generally so much happier. One of the first things that happened when we were able to support Marianne to live in her own place was that her mom called, and her mom asked if she would like to host that year's Christmas Eve family get-together. And it was just such a beautiful thing, because I know her family didn't feel comfortable coming to such a big environment where there's so many people and sharing their intimate family get-togethers. And so the very first Christmas in her own home, Marianne was able to have her family over for a Christmas Eve dinner, and it's been really special for her to connect with her family like that.
I'm Paulette McKinnon, and I'm Marianne's mother. She was 5 years old when I couldn't take care of her anymore. My back had went out, so they brought her to this home. And she's been in one ever since. From there, then she went to a private home, a couple of private homes. She was not happy, because Marianne's the type of person that she can't stand a lot of noise. And in Sussex, there was a lot of noise. So she was very unhappy for a while. So much so that she would make herself sick, and she'd end up going into the hospital. And I didn't even realize it was going on. That's what bothers me, But she... don't mind me, but every time I think of it, she's happy now. She's happy. You can tell, and her family can come here. Like she couldn't come to our place at Christmas time or anything like that because there was no access. But now that she's got her own place, everybody's coming to her, and actually she's hosting things that she likes. So, but now since she's moved in here, she's never sick. She hasn't been sick once since she's moved in. I don't see how it can get any better than it is now, because she's got everything she wants, and everybody's able to come here and be with her, and can't get any better than that.
Hand up. That means yes. So no, that's no. I'm Shelley Combat, and this is Marianne Cuglietta. Are you happy here, Marianne? It's been a long time since you wanted to have your own house. Do you like having your family over for dinners? She really likes it. Okay.
I think the sky's the limit for Marianne. We've seen a tremendous improvement in her health, and we hope that can continue so that she can experience all her dreams and wishes.
I'm so happy as an organization that we started to listen to Marianne and keep moving forward with her. So right now she's looking for a roommate, unlike what we've done in the past, she's going to be able to choose. So she's visiting with different people. She's connecting again with old friends, and just seeing what's out there as far as who she'd like to live with. The future for Marianne can only improve.
She is a totally different person. I took her out before when she lived in a group home. We'd run into people and she'd like turn her head to look at them. But now when you take her out and she sees somebody that she knows, when they come over to talk to her, she reaches her hand out. So yesterday she met somebody that used to work with her. She reached her hand out and she rubbed this lady's arm. I knew Marianne before, but now I know her. She's a great lady. People just have to give her a chance.
Okay, so hopefully, as I mentioned at the beginning, the power of stories. And now I'm going to move on to the second video. And again, this is another incredible story of a gentleman named Dwayne. And Dwayne's video is entitled Dwayne Paints Its Dream. And Dwayne's story is about, again, the power of choice and control. Dwayne was one who lived his life to the fullest. Dwayne had made the decision to live with a mechanical ventilator. And Dwayne was confronted with this difficult decision, and it was beautiful. The doctor did not dismiss him as a human being. They actually talked to him. Everything was explained to him. And again, living life to his fullest was his dream. So he did choose to live with a mechanical ventilator, knowing that he was never going to come out of a hospital ever again. Long-term care facilities would not provide support to him. Community Living Algoma at the time was not prepared to support him because of this equipment. And so basically the two choices he had was to move in with family, which was not a choice that was available for him, or to live the remainder of his life within a hospital environment. Dwayne did return home from the hospital. Community Living Algoma defied the odds. Dwayne was persistent. He made us work in a way that we've never worked with community partners and in collaboration like never before. Dwayne, after he returned home, we were able to witness a significant improvement in his health. He actually did never return to the hospital after the mechanical ventilator, after he was connected to the mechanical ventilator. Dwayne was one who painted rocks, and he secretly hid them in people's neighborhoods. And the neighbors used to refer to these as jewels. Dwayne was a very respected, supported person, and he was treated as a citizen until the end. Dwayne did pass away on February 24th, 2021, at the age of 55, with his guardian angels by his side, Nancy and Sarah. On a personal note, I was fortunate to receive one of those rocks, one of those jewels from Dwayne a few weeks before he passed, and painted on the rock was the emblem of the Boston Bruins. Of course, my favorite NHL team, when his favorite NHL team was the Maple Leafs. So just kind of tells you the kind of human being he was. So I hope you enjoy this video as well.
just wasn't happy here. It wasn't home for him.
There was not a day that he did not ask, when am I going home? He sat at the doors of complex care and would not budge because he's like, I'm not losing sight of these doors because I know that I'm leaving them.
What can't you say about Dwayne?
I think Dwayne is just a really easygoing guy.
He's a big sports fanatic.
He is one of the most powerful Sioux Greyhound fans that I know.
He is definitely a character. He always has a smile. He's always got a thumbs up for you. I think the world of Dwayne.
Dwayne makes me want to come to work every day. This is why I do what I do.
He was involved in a car accident when he was a child, and he sustained some serious injuries from that. He's been in a wheelchair for the majority of his life. His chronic medical conditions have evolved over time. Things such as tube feed to help meet his nutritional needs. He needs a tracheostomy with the decreased function of his lungs ever before even progressing to needing the chronic mechanical ventilator.
Dwayne is someone who experiences physical disabilities, who has overcome a lot of these obstacles and barriers for people with physical disabilities or people who have communication challenges. When Dwayne entered the hospital approximately a year and a half ago, he had some real compromised, serious health issues, and he wanted to come home. But we were really worried about the potential risk and how his health had been compromised, and whether we could support him with the adaptive equipment that he has now. Thankfully, we had an opportunity to meet with the direct support professionals that knew Dwayne and had spent time with Dwayne at the hospital. There was some real genuine interest, but real worry about having Dwayne return home. But we were very deeply committed, and we had worries and fears, and the hospital had worries and fears, but by working together, we could address them to ensure that Dwayne's needs would be met successfully. Very powerful things started to happen. We had staff visiting Dwayne on a daily basis while he was in the hospital. People that were working with him at the hospital started to think about supporting him to do the things he wanted in the community. So there would be a person from the hospital volunteering with Dwayne, us with our paid supports, and Dwayne was being supported in the community very successfully. What are we really afraid of?
My name's Christine Gregoire. At the time of Dwayne's coming here, I was a services manager here at 1020 Queen Street, and that role was overseeing the people we support here as well as the staff. So my role in his transition back home basically was to liaise with the hospital staff, in particular Paul Manning, who was the respiratory technician up at the hospital, who was going to be doing the training.
I've known Dwayne for several years. He's been quite a frequent visitor to the hospital due to some of his health issues. But most recently, with regard to his home ventilation, that basically started in the beginning of 2017. I believe it was around March. In that case, he was up in ICU on a ventilator. After treatment, it was basically determined that he would have to stay on a ventilator for the remainder of his life. The goal was to get him home on a ventilator. The first thing was to get funding for the equipment as well as obtaining the equipment. And that's, again, we have to apply to some government programs as well as get equipment from the ventilator equipment pool. And that was actually probably the easier things to do. The other thing was having a way to train the staff at the group home that will be taking care of Dwayne. And that can be quite a big project. There's a lot of hours involved, especially training staff that are not familiar with this type of equipment. I've taken part in sending many patients home on ventilators, but that usually involved maybe training one or two family members. With Dwayne, because he is at the group home, there is a large number of staff that work there that would have to be responsible for taking care of him. And we have to train all of those staff and that numbered well over a dozen. The RT staff here were great. We got them on board, and they scheduled time to take part in training all the staff. For me personally, that I've never had to train that many people.
My name is Jennifer McLaughlin. I'm a patient care supervisor for geriatric rehab, intensive rehab, and complex continuing care at Surrey Hospital. I facilitate the movement of patients from acute and sometimes the community to our programs. So the first time I met Dwayne was in early 2017 when I was a staff nurse in ICU. I cared for him while he was there. I moved to a position here for our programs as a patient care supervisor and continued being a part of his care during his time on complex care. My role in facilitating Dwayne's transition back home to CLA was to help organize and implement a training program for the CLA staff to help them learn how to care for Dwayne in this new way with the ventilator, and help them and our staff to really learn what that looks like and how we could get him home safely. It's a technical piece of equipment. It's attached to a human being that they care very deeply for. The education was the key piece to that. Paul Nanny did an amazing job, as did Vital Air and CLA, in coming forward with great ideas. You know, how can we get staff to be at a place of comfort? And I think certainly the time spent with Dwayne, caring for him in the hospital under the supervision of a nurse who has cared for him with the vent, really helped them translate that knowledge that they learned, you know, kind of in a classroom setting to what that would look like caring for Dwayne in person.
We started here in hospital with training our staff, having them go up to look after him in intensive care, doing a lot of online modules and workbooks here, and working with our respiratory therapists. And after we had our staff trained, we started pulling in CLA. We had them work with respiratory therapists both in the hospital and from the community sector. There was a lot to learn in regards to what the ventilator alarms meant, and so that they would know what to do with Dwayne or what to do with that equipment, and just building that comfort level for staff. And the only way to do that is with a lot of hands-on training. That's how you work through the problems. The alarms would go on the vent, and you'd see that look of panic initially with the staff, and you'd reassure them to look at Dwayne. Does he look to be okay? Focus on him, and then work your way out to the ventilator to troubleshoot through the alarms. Watching him go out that door and know that he was in really great hands with CLA and with our other community members to support that transition home was a very rewarding moment for me.
The transition went really great. Staff felt very confident and competent with their skills, you know, which I'm really proud of and they're proud of. Everybody was very professional, and everyone had the best interests of Dwayne at heart. And I think another thing too was one of our staff, Sarah, who has also worked with Event in the community, also I think brought a calming presence to staff. And I think that was also very helpful in making this transition successful.
I was his support staff at the time, so I facilitated a transition schedule with the manager, implemented it by going to the hospital every day to pick him up in the morning and bringing him back in the evening. And during the time he was here, I trained all the staff. So we had several checklists and sign-offs and a lot of practice, but it made them at ease that one of their teammates were able to troubleshoot the vent and teach them and be here for questions. Can't say enough about how amazing they are, and it is a huge undertaking and a lot to learn. So we began training in August at the hospital with Paul and the RTs. Afterwards, he came home and I had a checklist in place and a sign-off sheet as well. So we did a couple more sessions of training all the way until November 13th when he permanently moved home. Yeah, to my knowledge, nothing has been done like this in this field.
The training went very well between the hospital and ourselves. I think that we had some great collaboration between different members of the hospital team and our team. I had been connected with somebody down south who had mentioned to me that in our community, we did have a respiratory technician that had been down south that had moved up here to one of our service providers. And so that immediately was the connection for me, and I contacted Lacey.
Working with Dwayne and the staff at CLA has been amazing. All the staff are wonderful, very quick learners, and they really made my job very easy in transitioning Dwayne back home. VitalAire's connection with CLA and the hospital actually came about with providing oxygen to residents at some of their other homes. With the hospital, we work with the respiratory therapy department there quite closely on an ongoing basis, providing oxygen and other services. And with CLA, really what happened is they called us one day and said, is it possible for him to come home? And we were still trying to figure that out, what that would look like, and if it was even possible in his situation. We did decide that yes, it was something that was possible. It would take a lot of work, but it could absolutely be done. From there, we kind of just grew that partnership even further and providing more services for them and helping them in any way needed. It was definitely a huge task. And without that work and collaboration that we had between the hospital, the home here with CLA and VitalAire, it just wouldn't have all happened.
Community Living Algoma wasn't going to walk away. Sioux Area Hospitals wasn't going to give up. VitalAire wasn't going to give up. None of us would accept that it couldn't be done as an answer.
CLA's bravery, Dwayne's bravery, our bravery in doing something that hasn't been done before made us understand that we can impact lives hugely and we do worthwhile work, and despite challenges and obstacles, that it's worth doing.
It took a lot of work by a lot of people to make it happen. And so Dwayne's dream of returning home has been fulfilled. And he's with the people he wants to be with. It's really powerful and rewarding to see Dwayne get his opportunity to be home. And I think we learned a lot as an organization. We learned how to work better with our community partners, a different approach. We met a lot of people from Sioux Area Hospital that we never knew in our past, and they're remarkable people. Right to this day, they genuinely care and are checking in, and are looking forward to Dwayne's homecoming party, which is planned next week.
I would like to thank all of the professionals that we worked with at the Sioux Area Hospital throughout this whole transition. They were very supportive. I enjoyed working with them. Our staff team is remarkable. I know that it was a very long undertaking for them in terms of skills that they had to develop and grow, and it's so nice to see them very confident and competent. They cared a lot for Dwayne, and they were very committed and dedicated, and so I'm very proud of that.
We are really looking forward to the next chapter, and that is that we continue to explore with Dwayne what he wants in his life. Our ultimate objective is to help fulfill whatever goals and dreams he continues to have, and to develop that next chapter.
So Dwayne would like to formulate a presentation and go into elementary schools and talk to young kids about road safety, because he was hit by a car when he was 5, and just give his life story about what happened to him.
There's no barrier that can't be overcome. If we really put our time, our heart, and our mind to it, anything is possible.
Happy? Dwayne's very happy to be back home again. He would like to say thanks to everyone who helped with his transition. All of the teams, the hospital, the staff here, the managers, all of the support people. He's very grateful.
So as you can see, Dwayne is someone who has impacted the lives of so many in his 55 years. And all I can say is every time I see him, his video, and I think of him, everyone misses him very dearly. But he's left us with so many memories and so much for us to learn from and to carry forward on behalf of others. I'm going to get into just sharing some quick data, some facts, some successes and some challenges, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments. So this is, again, Community Living Algoma's story. In around 2008, between 2008 2010, Community Living Algoma operated 22 group homes supporting 103 people. At the current time, we're down to 6 group homes left supporting 31 people. And, the future for us is that we can see group living settings totally being removed from the type of support we provide to people within the next 2 to 3 years. Moving from 103 to 31 was challenging, but supporting these next 31 and their families to move forward is going to be even more challenging. But what we do have is we have many stories that we can share and many successes that we can share with families and people. I say it's difficult because these are the ones that have been dragging and resisting. There's no way they want to pursue community-based housing or other options. They're quite content within group living settings, which at the end of the day, again, I'm not predicting what the future is going to look like, but we may end up with 1 or 2 group living settings just because people made that choice even after seeing all the opportunities and experiences within the community. In total, currently we are supporting 169 people are receiving residential supports. 31 are in group homes, 92 are in community-based housing, and 46 in host family. And the important thing about this point is you can see the shift. You can see the shift of 103 people in a traditional program model to now we certainly have hit major critical mass with having 92 plus people in some form of community setting. Overall, Community Living Algoma, it's not the only support we provide. We do support approximately 800 children, youth, and adults at the current time. And the residential supports, and I think this is a real powerful statement here, from 22 group homes, we are now in a community, over 113 community locations throughout the Algoma district is where we're supporting people. So again, it doesn't make life easier, but it certainly improves quality of life for the people. So it's worth doing and replicating. I also want to emphasize that the past is not about bad or wrong. That's not the way we should look at it. It is what we knew at the time. And I think we need to also celebrate the past. But as we look forward, these are incredible stories. The success, the health, the smiles on people's faces, the reconnection with family opportunities, certainly worth continuing to move forward. Our story has been a transition from programs, congregated services, and system think, just like many of us on the call here today. Our organizations were developed that way. System think is talking about vacancies and beds. Today we talk about individual people. Dwayne, how is he living his life? What support does he require? What are his wishes and dreams? Same with Marianne and many, many others that we've been able to transition from traditional program congregated service models. People choose where they live and with whom they live. As I mentioned, I think at the onset, it is one of the 21 outcomes through the Council on Quality and Leadership, and we certainly work hard. This is an outcome when we first tackled this work that we thought we would never get there. And as you can see through our data, we're very well on our way to there. Choices come from affording people opportunities and experiences, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides. Community-based housing. Again, the story about community-based housing is simply the evolution of supports and services. So when we look at institutions to community, now what we're talking about is individualized and community-based supports, giving people opportunities to live in places and spaces like you and I would have available as citizens in our community. This next point, I can't say this enough. Listen, and then deeply listen, because people are telling us things all the time, how they want to live, who they want to live, who they want supporting them, their wishes, their dreams. But it does take a lot of listening. Citizenship is about equal opportunities for people to make decisions. Again, the role of citizenship is definitely not an easy one, but it is the only goal we should all be striving for, because every human being deserves to be considered a citizen in their community and in society. Affording people opportunities to dream. This is not something that comes very easily because of limited choices that people have had, or even limitations and restrictions sometimes that family or friends might put on people. So think about somebody like Dwayne and Marianne. If we didn't allow them to live, where would they be, or to live, to dream? Where would they be living today? Who would be supporting them today? What would their life be like today? And the other point I wanted to raise is, I think this applies to all of us as I talk to colleagues throughout the province, the next generation of people we're going to be supporting, people with intellectual disabilities. The dual diagnosis is much more prevalent, but they're not individuals who automatically just succumb to, they want 24-hour support. It is not what they want. People want opportunities for independence. And so we have to carefully determine what the appropriate level of support, while promoting independence and allowing people to grow and to reach their full potential. The other thing I think as we move into the future is we have to be cognizant of the age difference between the people who are currently in group living settings versus those who are sitting on a DSO wait list. So in our case, so for example, those 31 individuals who remain in group homes, I think the average age is 58. When we look at the priorities on the wait list, we're looking at 23 and 24, 23 to 30-year-olds. So quite a dilemma in terms of having to, I guess what I'm trying to say is we have to move forward. I don't think standing still and just continuing to think that group homes is the way to continue supporting people into the future is the right thing to do any longer. The journey, our vision statement reads, all people belong, join the journey. And I wanted to emphasize the all, because as an organization, this is what we've kind of focused on the last 10 years or so, is the work that we're doing to give people a better life. A person with an intellectual disability is no different than the work that our community needs to do for the homeless person, the person with addictions issues. So I think community living and our thinking is definitely leading edge in terms of how to support all people to be welcomed and to be citizens within a community. No more segregated, congregated programs, services, and supports. We're slowly getting out of it, as you can see through our group living data. The goal for us is for Sault Ste. Marie and the Algoma District to become a welcoming, inclusive, diverse, and equitable community for all people. And just the other night, on May 3rd, we launched the Community Engagement Project. We hosted 28 representatives, stakeholders, representatives from throughout the community, not necessarily organization leaders, people who are overseeing immigration, people who are overseeing the influx of international students to our college and our university. And we had a discussion around what are the simple things that a community can start to do? And it was very powerful. The evening really resulted in what I believe are two tracks that we're always confronted with. One is the social equity. So what's the policy, the regulations, the advocacy that we need to do? But I'll tell you where my heart is and where my energy is. It's in social capital. It's about how can we surround people with people in our community?
Rewind.
How can we enhance relationships? How can we provide people with real opportunities? And that doesn't require wasting a lot of time. It's really focused energy and focused time. We also spend a lot of time talking macro level change, and that's where that whole concept about how can a community living organization lead developing a more welcoming, inclusive, diverse, and inclusive community for all people. And of course, people with intellectual disabilities benefit from that. So it is a different approach to the micro, which is what can we do for people within a community? It's what can a community do for people as a whole. So belonging, friendships, relationships. It's not just about paid supports. We also need to start moving outside our lane and our silos. Again, I think everybody tends to work at an initiative. I mean, I'm very involved in homelessness in our community, just as a community citizen, not really as an organization leader. And I'm saddened to see the solutions. It feels like, you know, we're institutionalizing homeless people to take them off the streets. We'll put 60 people in a building together and think that that's the solution. And the community's quickly learning that those things don't work for any human being, let alone a homeless person or a person with an intellectual disability. And then the formula that I've worked with this my entire career, but in order for people to be able to make informed choices, they need to be presented with lots of opportunities and lots of experiences. That's how we all make our choices. Some of the challenges quickly, just I talk about resistance from families, but it's really the resistance to change. People get very comfortable and they don't want to change, and that happens with families and employees. I have to say this with a lot of confidence, having supported so many people to move forward with how they wanted to live their lives. People with disabilities are just waiting for these opportunities. Like they're running, and we're always lagging behind, and I think we need to catch up. But you'll see in italics at the end of all these bullets that I kind of provide solutions. So one thing to deal with any change is you've got to provide rationale. So the why. Why is it that we're changing? Not only is it that people want this, but look at the impact on quality of life. Look at the impact on natural relationships, reconnection with family. And why can't people have the same housing opportunities as you and I? My best story here is, I'll be very quick with it. I remember hosting a housing forum about 7-8 years ago, and it was for family members of people family members who had a son or daughter being supported in group living at the time. And I remember we went around the community and looked at places and spaces that people could live, and landlords and private developers and social housing that were really opening doors for us. And a beautiful thing happened that night, because the dad got up after we finished our slide presentation, showed picture. The dad said, "This is not fair." And I was kind of like shocked at first, like what was going to come out of Dad's mouth next. But Dad said, "Boy, my wife and I would love to live in those places." And inside, I just felt warm. I knew we were doing the right thing. The work was hard, but we knew it was the right thing. When moms and dads say, "Geez, I don't get to live in places like that," then we're leveling the playing field when it comes to their family members and all people with intellectual disabilities. I think another challenge is the ongoing communication with stakeholders. This is one that I've learned valuable lessons. If people would like to talk after, that'd be great. But you've got to keep the conversations alive with all stakeholder groups, the community, families, people supported, your employees. And you have to repeat the messages many, many times in many different ways through many different means in order for people to really understand the why and what's this really all about, and what's the picture we can present for future, for people in the future around what will my life look like if I do embark on this journey. I raised this point, quality of life is more expensive. I want to just say right off the hop, that's a myth. We've made significant changes in our organization, and we have not needed a single dime from the ministry to move our organization forward. And yes, we're relatively large in size, but I don't think size matters here. I think what matters is, what is your vision? What is the thinking and the culture, or what is the thinking and the culture of your organization? What do you want it to be? And how can we give people the lives that they need to have, and the opportunities to become citizens and to experience life in a community like you and I. Relationships are very important. And I also mentioned level of support. That was a reminder for me to share with you. As we've done this work, one of the things that you automatically will think is, you were supporting people in 22 locations and now you're supporting people in 113 locations. How's that possible? The level of support dramatically changes. when people are living in homes they choose to live in, there's greater opportunities for independence. There's more connection to families. There's more friendships that are involved. And so people, in fact, when they might have been living in a place where you were providing 24-hour support when they did not need it. When you think of somebody like the video of Marianne or the video of Dwayne, those were individuals who required 24-hour paid support. So the support gets divided differently based on the needs of an individual, and using technology to really promote independence and growth in people. As you move away from group homes, one of the challenges is the capital disposal process. I can tell you from experience, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. One message I'd like to give to people is make sure your agency owns the homes. I'm in a battle right now with the ministry around 2 properties that were donated that they think they own. But I was able to get some financial data and prepare a report to the ministry defending our position. And in fact, we're probably weeks away from a decision, but there's going to be significant ownership that still remains with the agency as opposed to the ministry. The other challenges you hear a lot is that there is no housing available. I can honestly tell you today, we have developers on speed dial. If we need a home, they will have a home within 24 hours or a rental property or something available to us. But it took a lot of work. I can tell you the success we've had, but it did take a lot of work. But it is all about building partnerships. How aware is your community about the needs of people with disabilities and their housing needs? We have developers now that share their plans, their housing plans, new developments. They know exactly what the expectations from Community Living Algoma and from the people we support. We want people to be able to stay in these homes, so they're all designed one level, accessible. But it's a lot of work, but it's worth the effort to build these partnerships. And then ODSP shelter allowance, again, this is an issue of advocacy. The way we were able to accomplish this, I think we can all attest to this, the rental market right now. So you move from a group living setting into the community rental market, and automatically you're going to think, well, we can't afford it. And that's why I wrote down ethical dilemma. And I think boards of directors really, and EDs and CEOs really need to struggle with this issue. How much longer can we wait for people to have decent income for shelter, as opposed to looking and flipping our organizations upside down and finding ways that we can continue to support people to move forward? The average cost right now for a 2-bedroom in Sault Ste. Marie is about $2,000. And so what we were able to do was work with an accounting firm that kind of took our current practice under group living and gave us, we wanted to get to a number that made sense as we were negotiating with developers. And these are all new housing opportunities that we're looking at. And the magic number was $2,000 a month. And so we enter into lease arrangements, rental arrangements with people supported, family members signing on with private developers. The $2,000 a month, when you factor snow removal, you're no longer responsible for snow removal. You're no longer responsible taking risk on any capital expenditures that the ministry might not fund you for. And a whole series of things that you know, the not having responsibility to be a property manager. When you factor in all the cost savings that result from that, it makes $2,000 a month very affordable. And as I said at the onset, this has not cost us more money. It is from the resources we currently have. And yes, we are supporting people through their rent. I don't want to use the term we're subsidizing their rent, but we are supporting them in whichever way we can to make sure that they can meet their rental obligations under the current market, and also the fair and equitable opportunities to be able to live in some amazing housing that we would probably have never imagined 20 years ago. The successes, I'll just go through these fairly quickly. 3 units within the new 8-plex that was built by Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation. And I think, I know the work that Doug does with elders and making sure that there's more community home care, that we, of course,
presentation they're talking about.
When we were building this, when we were planning this with the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation, they definitely wanted us to take 8 units. There was no way that was going to happen. We had to work really hard to help them understand. We're not targeting buildings. We don't want that. We're getting out of that. That's not the way we approach housing for people. But we did work with them, and we did work on accepting 3 units within an 8-plex. It just so happened that the demand in the community for housing units was also seniors. So there's 5 seniors without disabilities living with 3 people, 3 seniors with intellectual disabilities. And I have to tell you, it's turned into a beautiful joint venture. The Social Services Administration Board has entered into a contract. They've provided Community Living Algoma with $100,000 through home managed care. And that our role with the seniors in the building, we were able to hire additional staffing support, is to provide meals, cook meals, and to do laundry. And if we can keep those seniors out of long-term care because of a joint venture that we've partnered with the Social Services Administration Board, we've accomplished quite a bit. And I can't tell you how happy the 3 individuals in that 8-plex are that we're supporting. Shared with you Mary Ann's home and Dwayne Paints' dream. We have many other short clips and videos. I really encourage people to compile the stories, the journey. This history really matters. When I think of somebody like Dwayne, we have videos now that tell Dwayne's stories. He's no longer with us, but his story can continue. We see a lot of people that are empowered. They're making decisions. They're making choices. The level of support for each person is very unique. We're seeing tremendous levels of independence, growth in people, confidence, high self-esteem. We're seeing natural relationships, friendships stronger than ever, significant improvements in people's personal health. Dwayne had the opportunity to live in his home with another individual for about 2 years before he passed. And Dwayne never went back to the hospital, and he was somebody who had some serious health issues. Mary Ann, similar story. I mean, I pray it doesn't happen. I'm going to touch wood, but Mary Ann, as the manager had indicated in the video, has not been back to the hospital. And she was in the hospital probably every 3 weeks, chronically having to be brought to the hospital. So we know that it does improve people's personal health. Partnerships with private sector developers. People will say, well, you're in a small community. I agree. I wish I had enough time. This could be a presentation in and of itself, this journey. We had to work really, really hard to open the minds and the hearts and the eyes of private sector developers, because social housing does meet some of our needs, but again, they're going to be limited to resources and new housing opportunities. Private sector developers have been amazing in our community, and I can't say enough about that. We've also seen significant reduction in anxiety levels and stressors in the people we support, meaning a significant reduction in psychotropic medications for people because of behaviors and whatnot. Just some research and resources. Certainly, if people are interested, I can make these available through Sean, and we can get them out to people. I refer to the Council on Quality and Leadership. That's who we work with. This isn't a sales pitch. It's just who we work with. The 21 personal outcomes is our guide. We live by that. That's about measuring quality of life of the people we support. There's a good paper that was written by Dr. Michael Kendrick. It's a little bit dated, but it still meets the needs. If you haven't had an opportunity to read it, it's entitled "Why Group Homes Are No Longer Optimal." It's still very relevant. There's an MCCSS Developmental Services case study that was done in 2019. They didn't release it until March 2021. And it was Community Living Algoma, Community Living Brant, and Community Living Upper Ottawa Valley, which were part of this case study. This piece of research just came out a few months ago, the impact of people choosing where to live and who to live with. And this is a very powerful piece of information. So the findings revealed that people with an intellectual disability who choose where and with whom to live had a 74% decrease in emergency department visits. In summary, choice in housing may improve people's health outcomes. And then the last document I referred to is CQL. There's no place like home, a national housing strategy. There's probably a million others. I just wanted to highlight these to make sure that people, if they haven't seen them, we can make them available. That's the end of my slide presentation. I'm going to hit stop share, and I think we're going to come back to questions and answers. But before I open up, I just want to share with people, this is the rock that I was referencing. I'm not sure I'm going to get it in the screen. This is the rock that Dwayne has left for me. So I carry it with me when I make presentations like the one I make today. It inspires me and gives me the confidence and courage to talk about his story, and hopefully his story and Mary Ann's story will help many others to have similar experiences. So I just want to thank everyone again for your time today, and I'll turn it over to Doug for guiding us through questions.
Thank you very much, John. What a great presentation. If you're reading the chat box at all, which you probably shouldn't be in some ways, but listening to John this afternoon, but that was a great presentation, John. We have a few minutes, 15 minutes or so, where we have some questions, and I want to maybe, there's a variety of people in the audience today, from family members to friends to service managers to executive directors. So there's a variety of questions as well. So maybe I can just ask some very practical questions, John, just to start out with. Is this, one question was, is this opportunity for everybody, even people that have more significant disabling conditions or complexities involved with them? Not that the people that you weren't showing us aren't compromised in some way, but do you see this as being for my son, my daughter, who is quite significantly disabled?
Yeah, I think, Doug, the answer to that question is yes. This is an opportunity that everyone should be able to experience, or everyone should have as an option and a choice. The discussion really, I think, always boils down to level of support. And I know that this couldn't have taken place for somebody like Dwayne if there wasn't a commitment and 24 hours of support made available to Dwayne or to Mary Ann. So I like to think that the discussion really is about the level of support that people require, and organizations having to be flexible to be able to maneuver all the resources they have, because it's so easy to over support people. And what we realized is, as you start to unbundle your resources, you have a lot of flexibility as to who's going where. In some of our cases, you might have a staff person who used to work 8 hours, an 8-hour shift in a group home, who are now going to 2 or 3 locations to support people for a variety of hours. And so very individualized. It isn't easy. So I always say to organizations, start with your home runs, start with people that, Dwayne and Mary Ann was where we started, but that's the way I'm built. If we can do it for Dwayne and Mary Ann, then people can't tell me that we can't do it for the rest of the people we support. But I think for organizations that are starting on this journey, you really want to build on success. You want to build on the people that, this is what they want. They want out of a group home. This isn't about forcing people out of current living environments. I've had that question several times in other presentations, but yes, it is available to people. I think what we have to figure out is how we maneuver and stretch the resources to more places and locations. And that's a lot of work on organizations. So I want to assure families and people supported that it can be done with the right support being made available for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, John. That's very helpful to hear you say that. Another question, John, is just about some of the nuts and bolts. I think you mentioned a few things about the agency owning the home, a little tension around that. But what are some of the nuts and bolts around the funds you need for the capital funds for purchasing the homes, or the operational costs, and for 24/7 support, things like that as you've transitioned? Can you say a little bit more about these housing partnerships and the money that you're using and how you're getting that?
So the nice thing about moving into partnerships with private sector is we're not making any investment. It's only a commitment to rent, and that's done with people and families. So it's almost like three parties negotiating with the private developer. We will sign on as a partner in the rental agreements with families and individuals, because some families and some individuals would be very nervous about signing. Some people who don't have the capacity to understand certainly shouldn't be made to sign, but we're not putting any money out other than the time we're investing with private developers at the front end around the design. The design of the unit is critical. And we've been fortunate these designers have had us meet with their architects and engineers. And so now there's this model that they've designed, and they've been sharing it amongst each other. We're working with a series of developers. I think on the group home side, Doug, I just want to touch on that we came to a realization that we can't be good at everything as an organization. And what we really want to be good at is supporting people to enrich their quality of life. So what we gave up on is managing and owning properties. It comes with energy and effort and expertise that none of us really have. And when we had like $9 million in properties, and I'm thinking, man, like we don't have an architect on staff or an engineer on staff. And that's not where we want to put our time and energy. So even though we might remain with one or two group living locations, we're already in discussions with the Social Services Administration Board and the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation. At some point, we're going to transfer the properties to them. They become the manager of the property, the owner of the property. We become the support organization. And so, and those would be eligible at ODSP rates. So those will be social housing rental opportunities. So, but we want out of the housing business. That's not our area of expertise. And what we want to be excellent at is providing supports to people.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's great. And everybody on the call today, this is recorded, and so there is an opportunity for you to get a copy of the recording today. I think some people have asked about that. John, let me ask you another question. So when working with the ministry, I'm sort of paraphrasing this question, but when working with the ministry, it tends to be kind of boxy, like they have detail codes for funding its various levels of support, like SIL, group living, all these various detail codes. So as you do this, and you're providing 24-hour support to people, was that part of the challenge, was to figure out how do you speak the ministry language for the funding and the detail codes, and how you actually deliver the supports and services?
That's a great question, Doug. The ministry is such a huge partner in this, and I can't say enough. I think most regional offices understand this, but I can tell you, working with the North Region office has been incredible. They're a partner. They'll never say no. We just try and figure it out. I mean, when it comes to the detail codes, the ministry has introduced a lot of flexibility over the years. A residential, I mean, it's all under a residential support code. So we've been able to show to the ministry, so if we're reducing the number in group living, but we're increasing the number in community-based, and we meet the ministry service targets, what's the issue, right? And so the issue might become, do you have sufficient resources? Well, that's on the agency to figure out. So we really haven't met any challenge with the ministry on being able to move forward. I'll talk a little bit about the mechanics of it, which I think would be helpful for agencies, is the vacancy process. So when unfortunately, when you end up, a person leaves a group home, most of the time it's as a result of a person passing, that vacancy, you can negotiate with the ministry on deferring that vacancy as part of a residential plan to move forward. And we've been fortunate because we continually ask the ministry for deferrals when that opportunity arises. And our formula on unbundling our group living was we needed 3 vacancies deferred. That meant we could close a group home, and now we have resources that we would be able to reinvest in community-based supports, like community-based residential supports. And so that's what worked very well for us as an experience. Nowhere have I met any conflict with the North Region office as we were moving forward with this work. And in fact, I'll say, I think it was a few years ago, the ministry had a few of us do a presentation to program supervisors and regional managers. And they referred to it as being very inspiring, that this is possible, it can be done, that, you know, the ask wasn't more money. I'm one that I always qualify this because I think I upset a lot of people when I say we don't need more funds. Yes, we do. We need more funds to support more people. But for those we're supporting, we have ample funds to position them differently and enhance people's quality of life. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, that very strategic considerations there, John, about deferring vacancy so you can accomplish a plan that's set forward. I think that's something people could probably dig in a little more. And so, by the way, everybody knows John's at Community Living Algoma. I'm sure his door is open, his email is open. You'll be able to ask John more questions about this. John, just two little quick questions that I'll put together. So how many years has it taken you to make this specific transition? You go from 103 down to 22 or some locations, and is the quality assurance measures, is QAM applicable to the homes that you're now supporting people in?
So I'll answer the timeline. It was around 2008. It was between 2008. I'm going to say 2009 was when we really embarked on this journey, saying we're committing to slowly getting out of congregate living environments. So it's taken us a while, but here's the interesting part about that. It's unraveled like crazy the last 5 to 7 years. So it starts off very slow, and then it seems to, like, we couldn't keep up with the demand for people wanting out. So it was around 2009. So give yourself time. It does take time. In terms of QAM, Doug, the answer is yes, they are still subject to QAM. But I have to share that the person from the ministry who has come over various years, she always comes here wanting to go see all the new homes that people are living in. And she just reports that these places feel like home. And I mean, she sees a lot of places, and she says these places really do feel like home. And people feel like they're, the people look well, they look healthy. But yes, the QAM requirements are still part of the process.
John, let me ask you a question about that links back to Mary Ann, and in maybe some ways to Dwayne, but it was sort of picked up during Mary Ann. We speak a lot in this field about being person-centered, don't we? Like, it's something that's sort of out there. And in some ways we give it lip service, in some ways it's serious. And I was really affected by the comment that I think the manager made, that Mary Ann had been saying for 7 years that she wanted something different. And so what often hides in the background, like some big quest, like some contested question regarding person-centered planning, person-centered efforts, is what do we do when what we offer is inconsistent with what people say they want, and when it takes so long to make something happen? How do you keep up the energy over 7 years to listen deeply to someone like Mary Ann and to finally come out with something that's good? Is there trouble listening? Is there resistance to this? Like, what does it take to do this when it takes so long?
Doug, it's a great question. When you watch a video, you see the success of it, but the work that it takes to get there. I'll be the first to admit our organization has been a work in progress. I don't want people to think, oh my God, they're great. We're not. We're a work in progress. We have some success, but I can tell you horror stories of people telling us they want something or a change, and then it takes countless hours and sometimes years, as in Mary Ann's case. So Mary Ann ended up, I personally took responsibility for the organization's lack of response to Mary Ann for 7 years. I went to meet with her. I apologized to her. I even asked her if she wanted me to leave, I would leave. And she said, no, she wanted me to stay. And I said, I'm going to make you the promise that you need to hear. Are you ready to move? And she said, yes. I said, then we begin the work. When that commitment was made, Doug, I mean, it was clear. The manager knew there was no more negotiations. The staff knew there was no more negotiating and looking at the barriers. Start finding places, expose Marianne to these opportunities, and away we go. That all evolved in about 1.5 years, but 7 years, it was horrible. We used to measure her quality of life. You heard my director of services saying, we measured her quality of life for 7 years, and all we kept hearing was she hated where she was. And so we will make these mistakes, and I think we need to admit to them. We need to own them. But I also don't think we should be afraid to apologize to people for the mistakes we make. I have to say Marianne was resilient. She could have thrown me out. She could have said, I don't believe you. She could have said a whole bunch of things. She stuck with it. And it's beautiful. Anytime I visit her now, I can see the person. I mean, when you have a frontline staff saying, I've known her for 26 years, but now I really know her, that's when you know you're person-centered. That's when you know you're delivering services to an individual and not through programs and a machine. Remember the examples, 5 people and noise, and and staff are honest. In the video, she didn't lie. You dress, you care, you get people ready, you move to the next one. They're not getting any time or attention. Marianne has staff's undivided attention. And so person-centered approaches, I can't say it enough. I said it, listen, and then deeply listen. That's the key. That's the key to success.
Thank you very much, John. I think you also are speaking to the need of organizational leadership. And with that, I think I'm going to thank John very much for being here this afternoon. We try to end these things at 1:30 if we can. John, you've given an awful lot to us. In closing, I'm going to turn it back to Sherry Kroll, the chairperson of the Provincial Executive Directors Group, and to Chris Beasley, the CEO of Community Living Ontario, to say the final words.
Thank you so much, Doug. And John, on behalf of all of us, you have absolutely inspired us and motivated us to think differently, which I think will cause us to act differently. I know I found myself listening and then listening and then listening deeply, very much so, because the words are powerful and the stories are so beautiful. So we thank Community Living Algoma for the leadership that they've demonstrated. And I know it's put a fire in my belly and probably in others to really let those words resonate with us and think about how we can do things differently moving forward. I'll pass it over to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Echoing those words of thanks, certainly, John, amazing. Really want to thank Marianne and certainly to Dwayne and really what his legacy in that video of what is possible. And, it makes me think of your tagline at Community Living Ontario, or Algoma, and ours at Community Living Ontario is inspiring possibilities. And I think that's what Marianne and Dwayne both have done, as well as your presentation and how you took a vision and you walked the talk. And it made me think about, if you wait for the timing to be right, it never happens. And I think, we're waiting for, in Marianne's case, well, we're just waiting for this, or we don't have that, or we can't cover the shift, we don't have the resource. But once you make the commitment, and then it happens. And so really, really inspiring. I noticed a number of parents on the chat who were inspired while you were speaking and getting together and, oh, I want to be part of that conversation, and how it really was about, it becomes the how might we instead of the why we can't. And I just love that once you do the mind flip, anything is possible. So just thank you for bringing that to all of us today. Really appreciate it. Doug, again, your facilitation and bringing the questions from the chat, really appreciate it. So again, thanks for everyone's participation. These things don't happen unless people show up. So thanks for that. If you're a mother, happy Mother's Day on Sunday, because we don't exist without you. So appreciate it. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.